The sky above Proxima 4 burned like fire. Flames and smoke rose from broken towers. Energy blasts cut through the night, painting the horizon in red and white light. From the top of the central tower, Captain Trell watched in silence. His body, made of shining crystal and light, reflected the burning sky. Each blast sent small cracks across his glass-like skin. But he did not move. He only watched as his world fell apart. Below him, alien citizens, the Luminari, ran through the streets, their crystal bodies glowing dimly in fear. They were not soldiers. They were diplomats, artists, and scientists. The Void Hunters, ruthless space raiders, had come for their energy cores, and they were destroying everything to get them. "Status report," Trell said quietly, his voice calm though fear burned behind his silver eyes. Officer Lumi, his second-in-command, turned from her station. Her skin pulsed with faint blue light, the Luminari sign of distress. "Outer shields are at 12%, Captain. We've lost the southern district. The mining caverns are gone." Trell closed his eyes. "How many of our people remain?" 4,000, she whispered. "Mostly in the central caverns, hiding." The ground shook again. Another explosion. The tower lights flickered. Trell took a slow breath. He had made his decision long before the shields began to fail. "Prepare the deep space transmitter." Lumi's eyes widened. "Captain, the Coalition forbids open distress calls. The signal could reach anyone." Trell looked at the burning horizon. His people running in panic, his world breaking apart. "Anyone is better than no one," he said softly. He turned toward the console. "Send the call on all frequencies." Lumi hesitated only a moment before obeying. Her hands moved quickly, crystal fingers dancing across the glowing panel. A deep hum filled the tower. The signal, their last hope, shot into the cold void of space. Trell whispered almost to himself, "Please, let someone hear us." Scene shift, Earth's orbit around Jupiter. Far away in the quiet dark near Jupiter, a massive space station floated in the shadows of the planet. Inside, Communications Officer Ella Martinez sat in front of her console, sipping a cup of hot coffee. The night shift was always calm, always lonely. Then, beep. A small light flashed on her monitor. She frowned. "That's strange." She adjusted the controls. The signal was faint but constant, not background radiation, not a glitch. It was patterned. It was deliberate. "Commander Reynolds," she called, sitting up straight. A tall man with short gray hair and the calm look of someone who had seen too much war walked over. "What is it, Martinez?" "I'm picking up something strange. It's not human." She pointed to the screen, where rows of strange numbers scrolled, repeating in a perfect mathematical pattern. Reynolds leaned closer. "Can you clean it up?" Martinez nodded, typing quickly. The static faded, replaced by a voice. Musical, soft, trembling with fear. "This is Captain Trell of the Luminari colony on Proxima 4. We are under attack by Void Hunter forces. Our defenses are failing. We request immediate assistance from any vessels within range. We have 4,000 civilians including many children. Please, help us." The message repeated. Again and again. Reynolds and Martinez stared at each other. The air in the room felt heavier now. "Is it real?" Reynolds asked quietly. Martinez's voice shook. "Yes, sir. It's real. This is first contact." Reynolds exhaled, then turned toward the main console. "Alert Admiral Wilson. Now." Scene shift, Earth United Defense Fleet Headquarters. 3 hours later, the command center of Earth's United Defense Fleet was alive with motion. Officers rushed across the room, screens glowed with data streams, and holograms showed the origin of the alien signal. At the center stood Admiral Thomas Wilson, tall, broad-shouldered, dark-skinned, and calm as steel. His deep voice cut through the noise. "We've confirmed the signal came from approximately 18 light-years beyond our colonies. The translation markers are valid. It's genuine." The Defense Secretary Ms. Patel frowned. "You're proposing we respond to this?" "Admiral, we barely have control of our own borders." General Brooks folded his arms. "We don't even know what we'd be walking into. These Void Hunters sound dangerous." Wilson looked at the hologram, the coordinates of Proxima 4, a red star blinking beside it. He spoke slowly, his words heavy with meaning. "For centuries, humanity has wondered what our first contact would be like. Peaceful trade? Cold silence? Now we know. It's a cry for help." The room was silent. Wilson continued, "Our xenobiologists confirmed that the Luminari are a photosynthetic crystalline species, peaceful, fragile, and unarmed. If we ignore them, they die. Secretary Patel looked uncertain. And if it's a trap? Wilson's eyes hardened. Then we deal with it. But I don't believe it is. He turned to his officers. What ships are within range? 3, sir, came the reply. UDF Resolute, Dauntless, and Thunderchild. All on patrol at the outer rim. Wilson nodded slowly. With full FTL burn, they can reach Proxima 4 in 6 days. He looked around the silent command center. Every officer, every general, every technician waited. President Oaha's voice came over the comms, calm and firm. Send the ships, Admiral. Let the galaxy know what humanity stands for. Wilson straightened, his eyes cold and determined. He turned toward his officers. Prepare the fleet. Closing narration. Far across the stars, the people of Proxima 4 hid in the dark, their light fading. They did not know who would come, or if anyone would come at all. But somewhere beyond the edge of known space, 3 human warships turned toward their world. Engines roared. FTL drives charged. The message had been heard. And for the first time in galactic history, humanity was on its way. The order had been given. Across the cold silence of space, 3 of humanity's most powerful warships came alive. Inside the UDF Resolute, alarms sounded and blue lights flashed through the steel corridors. Soldiers ran to their stations, boots thundering against metal floors. The great ship, long and dark like a blade, hummed as its engines powered up. Admiral Thomas Wilson stood on the command bridge, hands clasped behind his back. Through the wide glass panels, Jupiter's swirling clouds reflected off the hull. He watched the planet fade into the distance as his fleet prepared to jump. Status report, he said calmly. FTL drives at 70% charge, replied Commander Hayes, a young officer with a sharp voice. Fleet synchronization in progress. Dauntless and Thunderchild report all systems green. Wilson nodded. Very good. Open a channel to all ships. A soft beep. 3 holographic screens appeared before him, showing the faces of the other captains. Captain Nora Lee of the Dauntless, a steady and fearless woman with eyes like ice, and Captain Rafi Karim of the Thunderchild, his voice calm but his ship known for its ferocity. Wilson's voice was firm and clear. Captains, you've all seen the signal. You've heard their plea. The Luminari are under attack and no one else is coming. Our orders are simple. We go, we protect, and we show the galaxy who humanity is. There was a brief silence. Then Captain Lee spoke, her tone low. Sir, with all due respect, this is first contact. We don't know their politics, their weapons, or their enemies. Are we sure we should interfere? Wilson looked out at the stars. We don't interfere, Captain. We save lives. That's who we are. And if the galaxy wants to test what a Deathworlder truly is, let them. Captain Karim grinned slightly. Understood, Admiral. Thunderchild stands ready. Wilson gave a final nod. Good. Synchronize the drives. We leave in 2 minutes. Scene, fleet preparation. On the flight decks, pilots climbed into their fighters. Engines roared to life, glowing blue beneath the hangar lights. Technicians ran between lines of armored mechs and heavy drones, checking weapon mounts and shields. Private Lena Brooks, only 21, sat quietly at her station in the armory, tightening the straps of her exosuit. Her hands trembled slightly. Her bunkmate, Sergeant Dax, noticed and smiled. First jump. She nodded. First real mission, sir. And it's aliens. Dax laughed softly. Don't think too much. Just follow orders, stay alive, and remember, we're the monsters they tell stories about. Lena frowned. That's comforting. Dax grinned wider. It should be. Above them, the great ship rumbled. The FTL drive reached full charge. Scene, the command briefing room. On the bridge, Wilson watched the last preparations. His officers monitored weapon systems, life support, and drive fields. FTL charge complete, said Commander Hayes. All ships report ready. Wilson turned to the holographic display. A glowing map of the galaxy appeared, a red marker flashing where the distress signal had originated. He stared at it for a moment, thinking. Humanity had come far. From one small blue planet they had spread across dozens of systems. They had fought wars, survived extinction-level events, and adapted to the most dangerous worlds imaginable. They were strong. They were survivors. And yet, this was something new. Helping another species, not for power or trade but because it was right. Wilson spoke softly, but the words carried through the bridge. For 200 years the galaxy has been silent. No one answered when we listened. Now someone is calling for help. Let's make sure they remember who answered. He raised his hand. All ships, prepare for FTL jump. Sync the jump. In every ship, the crew strapped into their seats. The hum of the engines grew deeper, shaking the decks. The stars outside the windows blurred into streaks of light. Private Lena held her breath. I hate this part, she whispered. Dax chuckled. You'll get used to it. A bright flash filled the viewports. The ships vanished from normal space, gone in an instant, tearing through the void faster than light. The fleet was on its way. Scene, Earth Command Center. Back on Earth, the command room was quieter now. The FTL icons blinked green, fleet in transit. Defense Secretary Patel stood behind Admiral Wilson's empty chair. She shook her head slowly. They're really going, she murmured. President Oaha, watching through a live feed, replied, We sent explorers to find life. Now we send soldiers to protect it. It feels right. A young officer turned from his console. Ma'am, the luminary signal is repeating. They're still under attack. Patel closed her eyes. Let's hope our people get there in time. Scene, aboard the Thunderchild. Captain Kareem leaned over the navigation console. His ship was the smallest of the three but built for speed and power. The crew called it, the Blade in the Dark. ETA to Proxima 4, 6 days 18 hours, his navigator said. Kareem nodded. Double-check the pulse cannons and missile bays. I want everything ready. His second officer looked uneasy. Captain, if these aliens are peaceful, won't our arrival scare them? Kareem smiled faintly. Good. Fear keeps people alive. But they'll see soon enough, we're not here to conquer. He looked at the image of Proxima 4 on the main screen, a small blue-green world surrounded by red clouds. We're here to remind the galaxy, Deathworlders protect their own. Scene, inside the Dauntless. Captain Nora Lee sat alone in her quarters, reading the transcript of the alien distress call again. We have 4,000 civilians, many children. Please help us. The words echoed in her mind. She had seen war before, human wars, where civilians begged for mercy that never came. She whispered, We won't fail you. Outside her window, the stars bent and swirled as her ship raced through the void. Scene, aboard the Resolute. Admiral Wilson stood alone on the bridge as the fleet continued its journey. He looked at a small framed photo, his daughter, a scientist on one of Earth's colonies. He wondered what she would think, knowing her father was leading humanity's first contact mission, a rescue, not a battle. Admiral, Commander Hayes called. Fleet synchronization stable. Estimated arrival time 6 days, 9 hours. Wilson nodded. Good. Keep the jump corridor clear. And monitor all subspace chatter. If those pirates have scouts, I want to know before they see us. Aye, sir. Narration, the waiting. 6 days in FTL felt like forever. The ships floated in the silent blue glow of faster-than-light travel, engines humming like thunder under glass. Crew members trained, checked weapons, and whispered about what waited for them. Some believed they were walking into a trap. Others hoped they'd find new friends among the stars. But everyone knew one truth: humanity was stepping into history. Scene, fleet approaching Proxima 4. On the 7th day, the fleet dropped out of FTL. The sudden silence was heavy. The stars snapped back into focus. Before them hung the red glowing system of Proxima 4. Sensors came alive with alerts. Admiral, detecting multiple energy signatures around the planet, said Hayes. Looks like ships. At least a dozen. Pirate configuration. Wilson stared at the display. The Void Hunters. He turned toward the crew. Signal all ships. Battle readiness condition 1. Load weapons. Shields up. The air on the bridge grew colder. Every heart beat faster. The world of Proxima 4 was dying. From orbit, the once beautiful crystal cities now looked like glowing embers scattered across the surface. Smoke rose through the thin atmosphere, drifting into space like gray ribbons. In the dark clouds above, the Void Hunter fleet circled like predators around a wounded prey. Inside the shattered colony, the Luminari huddled in the underground caverns, thousands of shining bodies dimmed to a faint blue. Their songs of peace were gone. Now only silence filled the tunnels. Scene, the cavern shelter. Captain Trell stood in the center of the largest cavern, surrounded by frightened civilians. His once bright crystal body had lost much of its glow. The air was filled with the faint sound of crying, soft, musical sobs echoing off the stone walls. Officer Lumi approached him. Her light flickered weakly. Captain, we've lost contact with the surface teams. The Void Hunters have taken the northern sectors. They're using orbital strikes now. Trell stared upward as if he could see through the layers of rock and dust to the burning world above. How long until they reach us? Hours, Lumi whispered. Maybe less. He looked around at the children, their crystal faces reflecting the faint emergency lights. Keep them calm, he said softly. He wanted to sound strong, but his voice cracked. We must not lose hope. Lumi hesitated. Captain, the distress signal. No one answered. It's been days. Trell turned away. Someone heard us, he said quietly. They must have. But even as he said it, he could feel doubt like a shadow in his mind. Seen, the Void Hunter flagship. In orbit, the Void Hunter commander, a tall, dark-scaled alien with burning red eyes, stood on his bridge. Before him floated a hologram of the planet, marked with hundreds of red dots showing their progress. Sir, one of his lieutenants hissed, the last Luminari defenses are gone. The colony is defenseless. The commander smiled, his sharp teeth glinting. Good. Prepare the harvesters. I want every power core from their cities. Leave nothing standing. He turned toward the viewing window and watched as a plasma cannon fired from one of his ships, striking a crystal tower below. The explosion bloomed like a dying star. He laughed quietly. Such beauty in destruction. Seen, Illuminari civilians. Deep underground, a small group of Luminari children huddled together. One of them asked, "Will anyone come for us?" An older Luminari named Elin, who had been a teacher before the war, whispered softly, "Yes." The captain sent a message to the stars. "Someone will come." Another voice trembled. "But what if no one hears us?" Elin looked up, her light flickering. "Then we will become light again. But we will not be forgotten." The children pressed closer to her as the ground shook again, dust falling from the ceiling. Outside, the roar of alien ships echoed through the tunnels. Seen, orbit, arrival of the humans. Far above the chaos, space shimmered. A ripple spread through the void, bright and blue. The UDF fleet had arrived. 3 human warships, Resolute, Dauntless and Thunderchild, dropped out of FTL drive, their hulls glowing with re-entry heat. On the Resolute's bridge, alarms sounded as systems adjusted from jump status. "Fleet clear of FTL corridor," reported Commander Hayes. "Enemy ships detected. 12 contacts, heavy weapons, multiple energy signatures around the planet." Admiral Wilson's eyes locked on the holographic display. "The Void Hunters. Should we hail them, sir?" Wilson nodded. "Open a channel." Static crackled through the speakers before his deep voice filled the space. "This is Admiral Thomas Wilson of the United Defense Fleet. You are attacking a civilian colony. Disengage immediately and leave the system. This is your only warning." There was silence for a few seconds, then harsh laughter broke through the calm. "Who dares speak to the Void Hunters?" the enemy commander hissed. "You humans should stay in your own corner of the stars. This world is ours." Wilson's eyes hardened. "Not anymore." He turned to his crew. "Arm all weapons. Target the lead ship." The room filled with energy as plasma cannons charged, railguns hummed, and missile tubes locked on targets. Fire. Scene of the first battle. The void exploded in light. The Resolute's plasma beams cut through the darkness, striking the nearest Void Hunter cruiser and tearing it in half. The Dauntless followed, launching a swarm of missiles that streaked across the sky like comets. The enemy fleet responded with chaos, red beams, energy bolts and torpedoes flashing across the black. For a moment, space became a storm of fire. On the Thunderchild, Captain Kareem shouted over the noise. "Keep shields tight. Focus fire on their weapon platforms." His ship twisted through the battle, its engines glowing white-hot, dodging heavy fire as it unleashed devastating return shots. Within minutes, 3 enemy ships were gone, their wreckage drifting in silence. The remaining Void Hunters began to scatter. Admiral Wilson watched the retreat. "They're breaking formation. Pursue and disable their command ship." Scene, the Void Hunter commander's panic. On his bridge, the Void Hunter leader stared in disbelief as his ships were destroyed one by one. "Who are these creatures?" he roared. "Deathworlders," one of his officers whispered, trembling. "The humans." The commander snarled, his voice filled with rage and fear. "Retreat to high orbit. Regroup." But it was too late. A bright flash filled the bridge as a railgun slug from the Dauntless tore through the side of his ship. The blast blew open the hull, sending flames and bodies into space. The Void Hunter flagship vanished in a silent explosion. Seen, on the surface. Far below, Captain Trell looked up as the ground trembled again, but this time, it wasn't from enemy fire. A distant roar filled the air, deep and powerful. Lumi stared at the scanner. Captain, something's happening in orbit. The enemy signals, they're disappearing. Trell stepped toward the opening of the cavern, his crystal body glowing faintly again. What do you see? Unknown ships, Lumi said. Large. Metallic. They're fighting the Void Hunters. Trell's voice broke. Fighting for us? She nodded slowly. Yes, Captain. For the first time in days, Trell allowed himself to hope. He closed his eyes and whispered, they came. Seen human ground forces. Moments later, drop ships launched from the human fleet. Hundreds of metal crafts cut through the clouds, glowing orange from re-entry. Private Lena Brooks gripped her seat as the ship shook violently. Sergeant Dax shouted over the comms, ground contact in 30 seconds. Remember, civilians first, pirates second. The dropship hit the ground hard. The doors flew open, and the soldiers poured out, armored in black exosuits, visors glowing blue. The Luminari, seeing them for the first time, froze in awe. These humans looked like walking machines, strong, fierce, and unstoppable. One of the children whispered, "Are they angels?" "No," said an elder softly. "They're Deathworlders." Scene, liberation. The battle on the surface was short but brutal. Human soldiers moved like lightning, precise, efficient, fearless. Their weapons tore through the remaining Void Hunters who had landed to capture civilians. Sergeant Dax's unit pushed into the ruins of the old Crystal City. They found dozens of Luminari hiding in shattered towers. Private Lena gently lifted a small child from the rubble, the child's glowing eyes wide with fear. "You're safe now," she said softly. The fires on Proxima 4 had finally begun to die. The night sky was no longer filled with burning debris, but with quiet light from the human fleet above. Massive ships casting blue shadows over the wounded planet. For the first time in weeks there was peace. But peace felt strange to those who had forgotten it. Scene, aftermath in the Crystal City. Captain Trell stood on the edge of the ruined plaza. What was once a shimmering city of crystal towers now looked like a field of broken glass. Wind moved through the ruins, carrying the soft hum of the Luminari rebuilding what they could. Human engineers and medics worked alongside them, their heavy boots echoing against the crystal ground. Small drones flew overhead, scanning for survivors and danger. Everywhere Trell looked, there was a strange sight, flesh and metal working beside light and crystal. It should have looked wrong. But somehow it felt right. He turned as Admiral Wilson approached, his dark uniform streaked with dust. The human leader had been everywhere, helping organize supplies, repairing damaged comm relays, and visiting wounded civilians. Trell bowed slightly. "Admiral Wilson, the Luminari owe you a debt we can never repay." Wilson shook his head. "You don't owe us anything, Captain. We just answered your call." Trell's glow flickered softly. Still no one else did. The signal was sent to hundreds of worlds. Only yours replied. Wilson looked up at the sky where his ships hung like silent guardians. Sometimes, the ones who know pain best are the first to answer it. Scene, the first meeting. Hours later, the surviving Luminari Council gathered in what was left of their grand chamber. A circular hall half-collapsed, filled with dust and broken light. Holographic crystals still flickered faintly on the walls. Admiral Wilson entered with two officers, Commander Hayes and Lieutenant Brooks, the same soldier who had saved the Luminari child earlier. The Luminari Council looked fragile, their crystal forms cracked and dim. The eldest among them, Elder Solon, rose slowly. His voice was deep, echoing like the chime of glass. "You are the first humans we have ever seen," he said. "And the first to spill blood for us." "Why?" Wilson hesitated, searching for words. Then he simply said, "Because someone had to." The hall went quiet. Solon tilted his head. "Your kind comes from a death world. We have heard the stories. Worlds like yours should not create kindness, only monsters." Wilson met his gaze. "Maybe we are monsters. But even monsters can choose to protect." There was silence again, heavy, thoughtful. Then slowly Solon's body brightened. "Then perhaps, you are the kind of monsters the stars need." Scene, a human and Luminari cooperation. Days passed. Human engineers helped rebuild the Luminari power grid using a mix of alien crystal energy and human fusion cores. The two technologies merged surprisingly well, light meeting fire, crystal meeting steel. Lieutenant Brooks worked with young Luminari technicians. They taught her how to tune the resonance crystals that powered their structures. In return, she showed them how to use human drones for reconstruction. At one point, a small Luminari child approached her and held out a glowing shard. "For you, the child said. A piece of our light. Brooks smiled gently. Thank you. I'll keep it safe. Nearby, Captain Trell watched the humans move, fast, efficient, yet always gentle with the Luminari. He turned to Admiral Wilson. Your soldiers fight like storms, but treat our people like glass. How do you balance such strength and care? Wilson looked at the rebuilding efforts and said, because we remember what it's like to be broken. Seen, the hidden message. One evening, as the last fires cooled, a technician approached Trell in panic. Captain, you need to see this. In the communications chamber, a holographic projection flickered to life. It was the original SOS signal, but there was something new. A faint reply. Not from Earth, but from somewhere far deeper in space. Trell's light dimmed. Who is it from? The technician hesitated. We're not sure. The code matches the Void Hunters, but it's older. A signal of command, not distress. Wilson entered, listening carefully. Play it. The voice that filled the chamber was cold and distorted. The loss of the Proxima fleet is unacceptable. Retribution will follow. The hunters will rise again. Static. Then silence. Wilson's face darkened. They're regrouping. Trell looked at him in fear. You mean, they will return? The Admiral nodded slowly. And next time they'll bring more than raiders. The plan. The next morning Wilson met with the Luminari Council. The Void Hunters are not pirates anymore, he said grimly. They're part of something bigger, organized, armed and spreading fast. Solon asked softly, then what will you do, Admiral? Wilson unfolded a holographic map of nearby systems. Blue lights marked human colonies. Red ones showed known Void Hunter attacks. The red marks were spreading like infection. We'll fight them, Wilson said simply. But we can't do it alone. Trell stepped forward. Then neither will we. The council exchanged uneasy glances, but Trell's voice grew stronger. We have ships left and engineers and knowledge of the outer systems. We will stand with the Deathworlders. Solon hesitated, then nodded. So be it. The Luminari will join the United Defense Fleet. Wilson extended his hand, a simple human gesture but full of meaning. Trell looked at it for a moment, then reached out his crystalline fingers and touched it. The two forms of life, light and flesh, sealed an alliance that would change the galaxy forever. Seen, training together. Over the next few weeks, the human soldiers trained Luminari volunteers. The sight was astonishing, crystal-bodied aliens learning to use plasma rifles and armored suits adapted for their luminous forms. At first, the Luminari struggled with the human weapons. Their bodies were not built for heavy combat. But they adapted, fast. Their ability to manipulate light and energy allowed them to enhance the weapons in ways humans hadn't imagined. One Luminari engineer modified a standard human drone by fusing it with a resonance core. The result? A silent, invisible scout that could move through enemy sensors undetected. Commander Hayes watched in amazement. You just turned a $10 million drone into a ghost. The Luminari smiled faintly. Light travels faster when it wants to be unseen. Seen, the human Luminari ceremony. When the rebuilding was complete, the Luminari gathered in the plaza where their first tower once stood. A new monument had been raised, half metal, half crystal. Its surface shimmered with light, reflecting both human and Luminari symbols. Captain Trell stood beside Admiral Wilson as the crowd gathered. Trell spoke first. Once we believed no one beyond our world would care for us. We thought the stars were empty of compassion. But today we stand with those who came from a world of storms, and yet brought peace. Then Wilson stepped forward. When we came here we expected only to save lives. But what we found were allies, brave, brilliant and worth fighting for. From this day forward, Proxima 4 will never stand alone again. The crowd erupted in soft, harmonious light, thousands of Luminari bodies glowing in unison, filling the plaza with color. Brooks whispered to Hayes, it's like watching a sunrise made of souls. Seen, in orbit. As night fell, the fleet prepared to depart. 6 months after the Battle of Proxima 4, the stars were no longer quiet. Trade lanes reopened. Luminari towers glowed again, brighter than before. And in orbit above, human and Luminari ships patrolled together, steel and crystal, side by side. But peace in the galaxy never lasted long. Because far beyond known space, in a dark nebula where light itself seemed afraid to travel, something was waking. Seen, the Hunter Lord rises. A massive vessel drifted in the shadows, a warship the size of a city. Inside, the Hunter Lord Zarth stood before a burning hologram of Proxima 4. His voice was deep and metallic, echoing through the chamber. They destroyed our fleets, these Deathworlders. They think mercy makes them strong. They will learn what true fear is. Around him, other Void Hunter captains knelt. Their armor was black bone and steel, their eyes glowed with cold hunger. Zarth raised a clawed hand. Summon every fleet. 10,000 ships. We will burn their new alliance from the stars. Scene, on the UDF Resolute. Far away, Admiral Wilson stood on the command deck of the Resolute. Through the viewport, Proxima's twin moons glowed softly. Commander Hayes approached with a datapad. Sir, deep space probes picked up strange readings near the Drax Rift, energy signatures we've only seen once before. Wilson's jaw tightened. The Hunters. Hayes nodded. Yes, sir. And there's more. The signal pattern shows command codes. Organized fleets. Someone's leading them. Wilson looked at the holographic map. Red blips were appearing like drops of blood across the stars. They're not raiders anymore, he said quietly. They're an empire. Scene, Proxima Defense Council. In the rebuilt crystal chamber, the human Luminary Council gathered. Captain Trell stood beside Wilson, both faces tense with worry. Admiral, said Elder Solon, if the Hunters return in such numbers we cannot hold. Wilson straightened. Then we don't wait for them. We take the fight to them. Murmurs filled the room. The Luminari had never gone to war before. Trell spoke carefully. Our people fear aggression, Admiral. We were taught that to fight is to lose our light. Wilson met his gaze. Sometimes, Captain, keeping the light means facing the dark head-on. The room fell silent. Then Solon finally said, Then we will stand with you. Scene, the joint fleet prepares. In orbit, shipyards glowed with human flame and luminary light. New warships were built, part metal, part crystal, powered by hybrid cores. They were called the Radiant class, fast, silent, and deadly. When they moved, their hulls shimmered like glass, scattering enemy sensors. Lieutenant Brooks watched technicians fit resonance drives to the Dauntless. They said this couldn't be done, she muttered. Beside her, a Luminari engineer smiled. Impossible things happen faster when humans refuse to quit. Scene, departure. 3 weeks later, the fleet was ready. Dozens of human and Luminari ships gathered above Proxima, their engines glowing like a new constellation. Admiral Wilson's voice echoed through every comm channel. Today we go beyond our borders. Not to conquer but to protect. The Hunters believe fear can rule the stars. We will show them courage answers back. Engines roared. In flashes of blue light, the United Fleet jumped into FTL. Scene, the Battle of the Drax Rift. The Drax Rift was a region of swirling gas and frozen asteroids, red lightning crawling through its clouds. It was here that the Hunters waited, an armada of black ships stretching for thousands of kilometers. When the human Illuminari fleet arrived, sensors overloaded with enemy signals. By the stars, Hayes whispered. There must be 10,000 of them. Wilson's face remained calm. Then we'll make them count each one of us 10 times. The battle began with a roar of plasma fire. Blue human torpedoes streaked through the dark, while Luminari crystal lances cut across enemy shields like blades of light. The Hunters countered with swarm missiles, filling space with deadly clouds. Brooks piloted the Dauntless through the chaos, weaving between debris. Target those missile nests, she ordered. The ship's cannons fired, tearing through Hunter frigates. Nearby, a Luminari destroyer called Aurora Song unleashed a resonance burst, a wave of pure sound that shattered enemy armor. Trell's voice echoed through the comm. Admiral, our resonance weapons are destabilizing their cloaks. Good, Wilson said. Keep them blind. Scene, Admiral Wilson's gambit. Hours into the battle, both sides had taken heavy losses. But the Hunters still had numbers, endless, dark waves closing in. Wilson watched his tactical display and made a decision. Signal the Thunderchild, he ordered. Initiate pattern Epsilon. Commander Hayes blinked. That's the fusion overdrive maneuver, sir. It'll tear the rift apart. Wilson's voice was hard. Exactly. It's the only way to break their formation. Moments later, the Thunderchild sped toward the densest cluster of enemy ships. Its engines glowed white-hot. The ship's captain sent a final message. For Earth. For Proxima. For every world that called for help. Then the Thunderchild detonated. A blinding light ripped through space. Shockwaves tore across the rift, consuming thousands of Hunter vessels. Even Wilson had to shield his eyes as the explosion burned across the holographic map. When the light faded, the Hunter armada was shattered, drifting wreckage and broken hulls spinning into the void. But the Thunderchild was gone. Silence filled the fleet channels. Scene, after the fire. The battle was over. The Drax rift glowed faintly where the explosion had turned matter into mist. Admiral Wilson stood at the viewport, expression heavy. They gave their lives so the rest could live, he said quietly. Trell stepped beside him. On luminary worlds, when one light fades, it gives birth to many more. The Thunderchild's light will not die here. Wilson nodded slowly. Then let's make sure it doesn't. Scene returned to Proxima. Weeks later, the fleet returned home. Crowds of Luminari and humans filled the plazas as ships landed. For the first time in history, both species cheered under the same sky. Elder Solon addressed the gathering. 6 months ago, the Luminari called for help. Today we stand as allies, not beggars. The Deathworlders did not bring destruction, they brought hope. Admiral Wilson spoke next. The hunters are broken, but they will rise again. When they do, they won't find one world alone. They'll find a union. The crowd erupted in light, waves of blue and white energy glowing across the city like a living aurora. Seen, in the shadows of space. But deep beyond the ruined rift, fragments of hunter ships drifted silently. In the darkness, faint red eyes flickered to life. A voice whispered through static. The Lord has fallen, but the hive remains. Thousands of small ships detached from the wrecks, scattering into hyperspace. They carried data, rage, and vengeance. The war was not over. It was only changing. Scene, epilogue. On Proxima 4, Captain Trell visited the new memorial, a crystal monument fused with human metal. Inside it, the names of the Thunderchild's crew shone beside luminary symbols of honor. Lumi approached quietly. Do you think this peace will last? Trell gazed at the stars. Peace never lasts, but alliance can. And as long as the Deathworlders stand, no cry for help will ever be silent again. High above, the Resolute orbited the planet. The battlefield above Proxima 4 burned brighter than any sunrise. Fragments of destroyed ships drifted like silver snow across the void. But the fight wasn't over, not yet. Inside the UDF Resolute, alarms blared. The ship shook violently as a plasma bolt grazed its hull. Sparks burst from the ceiling panels. Shields down to 30%, shouted Lieutenant Ramos. Keep firing, ordered Captain Hayes, his voice steady even as smoke filled the bridge. Target their command ship. The screen flashed red. The Void Hunter dreadnought still advanced, its dark hull pulsing with violet energy. It was 3 times the size of any human ship. Each blast from its cannons tore through the stars like thunder. Down on Proxima 4, Captain Trell watched the sky from the colony's ruined tower. The clouds were alive with fire and falling debris. He whispered softly, "They came, they really came." Beside him, Officer Lumi's body glowed faintly. "We should go to the caverns, Captain. The radiation is rising." Trell nodded but couldn't move. His eyes were fixed upward, where tiny lights fought against the endless dark. Back in orbit, humanity's last push began. Admiral Wilson's voice came through every ship. "Deathworlders, show them what we're made of." The fleet shifted formation. Resolute, Dauntless, Thunderchild, all diving toward the massive enemy flagship. The battle became a blur of motion and light. Missiles streaked through the darkness, explosions blooming like silent flowers. Inside the Thunderchild, Commander Zhao shouted, "If we overload the reactor core, we can take that dreadnought with us." "Are you insane?" her engineer cried. "That's suicide." Zhao's voice was calm. "Better one ship lost than a world." Wilson heard her through the comms. He hesitated, then said quietly, "Permission granted, Commander." "Godspeed." The Thunderchild broke formation, engines burning blue-white as it charged straight at the enemy flagship. Enemy fire tore through its hull, but it didn't stop. The bridge lights flickered, alarms screamed. Zhao smiled faintly. For Earth. For Proxima. The ship's reactor went critical. A silent flash consumed half the sky. When the light faded, the Void Hunter dreadnought was gone, torn apart, scattered across orbit. The human fleet, though battered and broken, had won. Hours later, the survivors gathered near the colony. The fires on the surface were dying. In the control room of Resolute, Admiral Wilson stood before a cracked viewport, staring at the glowing planet below. Martinez, the communications officer, approached. "Sir, the Luminari are hailing us. Captain Trell wants to speak." Wilson nodded. The hologram flickered to life. Trell's crystal body cracked and dim, but his eyes shone with gratitude. "You came for us," Trell said softly. "You had no reason to, yet you came." Wilson replied, "You called for help. That was reason enough." Trell's voice trembled. Your world, it must be strong. To fight like that. Wilson gave a tired smile. Strong, yes. But not cruel. There was a silence, a shared moment between two beings from different worlds. Trell finally said, the galaxy will remember this. Wilson looked out at the wreckage scattered among the stars. So will we. Down on the surface, humans and Luminari worked side by side to rebuild. Children of both species stared curiously at one another, fear replaced by wonder. Lumi watched as a human engineer repaired a power relay with steady hands. You fight like storms, she said, but heal like sunlight. The engineer smiled. We try. A memorial was built near the colony's main tower, for the fallen of both species. Among the names carved in crystal was one that every Luminari learned to speak. Thunderchild. Weeks later, back on Earth, a message was broadcast across every major channel. Admiral Wilson stood before the Galactic Coalition. Behind him, the flag of Earth fluttered beside a new symbol, the Luminari crest. He spoke simply. We have made first contact. They were not conquerors, not gods, just people asking for help. We answered. And because of that, we are no longer alone. The chamber was silent for a long time, then applause erupted, echoing like thunder. Far away in the depths of the void, fragments of destroyed Void Hunter ships drifted silently. But in the darkness, sensors flickered, faint signals pulsing in rhythm. Somewhere out there, the Void Hunter still lived. A single line appeared on a distant scanner. Transmission detected, unknown origin. Admiral Wilson's voice echoed from the past. If it's a trap, we'll deal with it. The stars shimmered, silent witnesses to the beginning of a new chapter. Not of war but of unity born in fire.